Dina mai na makamaka o ke kaiula o Kīhei. O le makawalpan ko inoa he lalava o ka papa o ko o ka hui kaiula o Kīhei. E lohe e kako I ke iam ahiahi ka manao o kaumako ka kako luna maka ainana maka hale maka ainana a me ka aha kanikoa o ka moko aina o Hawai. I'd like to thank, first of all, let's thank ProArts for hosting us again. This is the most wonderful place to hold a meeting. So much better than any place we've ever been before. Very comfortable. And then I want to thank those who brought something for the Maui Food Bank. And I just checked the Maui Food Bank's website, and they provide this information, which I think is kind of interesting. Of those who benefit from the Maui Food Bank, 65% have an income below the official poverty web guidelines. 37% are working households. Almost 50% of the people we serve are single moms, and 1 in 4 children in Maui County is currently at risk of going hungry. This is a 62% increase in the last decade. How can that happen? How could that be the case on Maui? Anyway, we can do our part by contributing to the Maui Food Bank, both here and otherwise. I also want to point out that being a member of KCA helps us in many ways. It helps us advocate for affordable housing, for the environment, for infrastructure, for safety. And it also allows us to rent this wonderful venue to hold these public meetings and to get the word out about them through advertising, through our website, and through our newsletters. I also want to thank the KCA directors, volunteers and members who have worked to prepare and hold this meeting, and also working to push the developers, the landowners and the politicians to consider the needs of South Maui's residents and our environment. Our speakers tonight are our Hawaii House Representative for South Maui, Terez Amato, and our Hawaii Senate Representative for South and West Maui, Angus McKelvey. They will be filling us in on what happened at the legislature this year, and there'll also be plenty of time afterwards to answer questions from the audience. We'll also provide an update on where we stand with the new South Maui Community Plan. Do we have any other elected officials here besides Terez and Angus? I don't think so. Okay. So with that, I will give the word to Angus to start his presentation.
I'll stand on this side here. So I have a PowerPoint. Sorry, let me get this. I'm going to stand up, make it easier to see the screen. Aloha, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We so appreciate you being here and taking part of our top story to let you know, as we said, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what was the 2025 legislative session. We could cram it into a very discordant presentation, but we're going to keep it very streamlined and simple and kind of to the point to kind of touch upon the issues which we discussed at the previous KCA meetings that we all know about, how we proceeded on them, and how we plot a way forward with the community, and especially with the community groups like KCA. And at the end, you'll see it's the most important time ever to have a strong organization like KCA here, because many of these things are going to start to develop into projects, and to see these projects through, it has to be something bigger than politicians in their terms. It has to be the community to provide that length and breadth. So aloha, mahalo, KCA. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So these are the major issues we touched upon last year, this year going into the session. Insurance, we all know about that and how that was affecting us. Infrastructure, we see the challenges daily, both in what should be done and what needs to be done. Cost of living, which now especially tearing at us, given the uncertainty with 401ks being shredded and unpredictability. In the economy, healthcare, a critical one, especially given what's going on now at the federal level. Water and our water resources, and finally, disaster resiliency, or trying to ensure that South Maui can be a part of the solution for disasters, knock on wood, that one never happens. Your next slide, please. Insurance. We introduced a lot of bills for insurance this year, and I'm disappointed there were many of them that did not make it, but there were some fundamental insurance bills that did make it. One of them was 752. This extends the notice period in which insurers have to give to the customers of when there's going to be a cancellation or an increase. Before, so many people, associations were getting blindsided, right? With increases, left people scrambling. This will provide certainty for consumers so that they're not hopefully left scrambling. 1044 will expand the power of the Hawaii Property Insurance Association. This will reactivate Hawaii Hurricane Relief Fund to serve as a secondary pool or reserve for insurance, so hopefully stabilize rates. The other thing that this bill will do is allow for them to make loans to condominium associations to cover catastrophic insurance rates and the coverage thereof, so that they can obviously be able to afford. These mechanisms are loans. The HPIA works with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority that does amazing financing things already for the state, and we feel this will be a good opportunity to finally give some relief to the associations and the members on the catastrophic insurance side. And then finally, we put in resolutions that we'll talk about some more later, SR 178. This would encourage insurers to reduce local residents' insurance costs and to pursue subrogation claims against polluters. And why this is a big deal is that as more and more disasters happen and they become bigger and bigger and bigger, there has to be a causal connection there that's obviously been made by science. The responsibility needs to be borne by all parties, not just the homeowners. Next slide, please. Infrastructure. So much on infrastructure for the community. A couple of things that we did that I think will help to push the way forward for us is, one, we've expanded the powers of Hawaii Community Development Authority to allow them to work with the community on projects, infrastructure projects, without the necessity of being in any kind of a formal community district association. This could provide funding and opportunity for infrastructure, from things such as sidewalks and partnerships with the county to trying to also kickstart some of these other projects that they're trying to go for the Pi'ilani, and potentially maybe to help push some of these projects which are dying because of the federal government. The North-South Connector Road, we adopted a resolution asking the county, the KCA, again, mahalo to them and their governance committee. They had an amazing meeting laying out the issues they've done repeatedly, and so the resolution was to give voice to the county that we need to plan and prepare for that final phase, which isn't even on the books yet, while we get this phase that's being funded and approved actually built. And then finally, we got $500,000 for a capital improvement for the Pi'ilani Highway widening at Wailea. Now, I know this is tied up with a controversial issue going on at the county level, right? And in the KCA meeting, I asked them, I said, look, we could go ahead and disavow funding for this because of the concerns with the proposed development that's going on nearby, and that they were supposed to be doing this as a condition of the development. If, however, we do this and we kill the funding, there might not be funding or a widening of this road, which is taking way too long, especially people in Maui Meadows. So Representative Amato and I went ahead and we made the decision that for the best of the community, we needed to support the funding, and so we secured the funding so that the widening and improvement for that segment of highway can begin and be done. And actually, I think it's better now because it's not tied to the fate of another project. It's going to get done, right? It's not going to be, well, if this happens or if their condition, we've seen how conditions melt away magically over the years, right? And this is a way to, so I think at the end of the day, it is a win for the community, it's a win for safety, it's a win for traffic congestion, in that area. Next slide, please. One of the things we did is to get money released, and I wanted to highlight this because there was a lot that Rep. Amato and I did last session, but it doesn't end with the signing of the budget. It goes through a very long process of financial review and approval, and so a lot of times you'll see monies that we've secured in previous sessions released now. And one of it was a $3.2 million for Access Deer Control. They're the guys putting up the fencing, using the money right there, happening right there. And it was all for South Maui. I underlined that on purpose. And this is, there are a few people who may disagree with me on this, but and I think many others agree, there is a very definitive causal connection between the access deer and the destruction they're causing and the plumes of mud and flood and silt that are just destroying beautiful South Maui. And so I want to thank the Governor, Green, who personally alerted me to this, and his commitment, I think it shows. When we secure the funding, he's going to be there to execute it. And so that's a big win to help to address the systemic problems which require a lot more work than this. Next slide, please. Cost of living. Next slide, sorry. I want to talk about our historic tax cut that we did last year because like the Access Deer money, this is the year you actually saw it, okay? This is the theory. Did we increase the refundable earned income tax credit from 20% to 40%? So this will double the size of this income tax credit if you take it or have taken it. We also doubled the food excise tax credit and increased income limitation by $10,000, and this will double the amount of the credit and benefits to additional 90,000 people in our community that otherwise wouldn't be able to qualify for before. And this expansion of the credit represents $43 million in direct income support for our communities. And then we've also expanded the child independent tax care credit to increase the allowable expenses from 5 to 10, from 2.8 to 4.8, and make it refundable for $3,000 for working parents. And what this does, besides, I believe, creates more money in people's pockets when you pay the taxes. If you haven't taken advantage of it, take advantage of it. If you were a late filer, it also starts to curb the regressiveness of our tax structure. We have a regressive tax structure in Hawaii, and as the CPI goes up, as cost inflation goes up, you basically end up being pushed into higher tax brackets that have remained the same and don't reflect the fact that now you're making more money, you're spending more money because you have to, but you're not living that type of lifestyle over the bracket you're being taxed. So this is our attempt to try it. Next slide, please. And this will explain to you, the public, when am I going to start feeling the effects of this? And so we basically have directed DOE tax objective withholding tables. If you get withholding through paychecks, the paychecks have got bigger starting in January of this year, and tax refunds will also start getting larger this year. And the withholding adjustment schedules, you can see, will increase from 25 to 31. And here's the table. We have copies of this presentation. We'll give to KCA. We'll also be happy to email so people can look at it and ask more questions. Next slide. I'm starting to run behind on my time here. Housing. We introduced a lot of bills on housing, particularly for the South Maui community. Unfortunately, many of them didn't make it. I think a lot of it had to do with the chaos at the federal level. A lot of our housing, affordable housing, is tied so intimately to HUD, to things like the Dwelling Urban Revolving Fund, the rental fund. And so a lot of projects and things that could have been done died because of that. That being said, there are some bills that are important. One of them is 422 relating to school impact fees. Sounds good on its theory, right? You build an ohana, you build a house, potentially more kids are coming to the community, so you pay an impact fee. But you pay that impact fee even if you're remodeling, even if you're adding like an extra room. And the fact is that the Department of Education has successfully managed not to spend, I think, almost $1 billion of CIP, of which these impact fees are being collected. So we're saying no more impact fees. You need to spend what you got, and this will hopefully bring down and help bring down housing costs, especially if you're trying to add a unit or an accessory dwelling unit or an ohana. And then finally, historic preservation reviews. We have HB 1409, this relating to transit-oriented development. This would basically establish a mixed income sub-account and require a strategic plan for TOD areas, of which there are on Maui. The Pi'ilani is the TOD area, as is the Ho'opi'ilani over there. This would be a requirement to get infrastructure in before any development is done in these areas. And historic preservation reviews, this will help to hopefully speed up the historic preservation by allowing for third-party consultants. As long as they meet the requirements and project proponents pay the reasonable fees to third-party consultants, you can expedite the needed historical review. And that's going to help to bring housing online that often gets stuck, not because they can't successfully do it, but because the personnel and people aren't there. Next slide, please. Healthcare. A couple of things this year is we appropriated funds to establish the Bachelor of Science Nursing degree program at UH Maui College. And then we went ahead and we extended the sunset date for the reimbursement of services for telehealth, which we're trying to desperately expand because of our lack of shortages. In this area, the federal government is playing a role of havoc. A lot of our nurses come from the Philippines and other places, traveling nurses. They've been frozen and are fearful. We could be seeing major disruptions in our healthcare system coming up this year, which is why we are coming back for a special session later on. But next slide, please. Water and the environment. A big one for us because restoration of the sand dunes is critical for all of our South Maui and Maui is House Bill 1137 relating to restoration of beach lands. This would amend the definition of beach restoration to include activities undertaken to maintain and improve eroded beaches. And as we've seen here, this is a very critical work that some nonprofits are doing already. This will hopefully help them by getting the state DLNR to aggressively tackle it and provide for a buffer against flooding. Next slide, please. And Ma'alaya Malcolm Management, thanks again to Rep. Amato. The House put in the budget, and we successfully were able to support it, 1.75 for the management of the lands that we purchased above Ma'alaya Malka. So not only does it mean we won't have to have development up there, but it means that this land won't become a fire trap because it sits in disuse. More is needed, but that's a healthy investment at 1.75. Next slide, please. And then finally, we also in the Senate, we confirm people on boards and commissions, and one of the biggest boards and commissions is the Commission on Water Resources, or CWRM, and we successfully nominated, nicknamed Auntie Hammer, to be the new lawyer on the Water Commission, and this is a critical role because they provide the cultural guidance. There was a lot of issues about one being named that, despite qualified people like herself, were passed over, so thankfully, the administration saw we need qualified, competent cultural practitioners, and they named one, and we were proud to support her nomination. Next slide, please. And disaster preparedness. Our legislative support for disaster preparedness started with, of course, trying to do something with the fireworks issue. Money, extra money in positions. There are other measures that provide more powers, including more of an inspection program. There's a measure that we passed that creates our border customs, if you will, within the Department of Ag to try to intercept, and have Department of Law Enforcement work on using drone reconnaissance where permissible by law to protect us from illegal use of fireworks. And then also the big one for, I believe, South Maui and all of us is building upon the Fire Marshal's office that we established last year by creating a phase 3 and giving it real powers and teeth, especially with vegetation management, to ensure compliance and other things that the other fire marshals in other states do try to help compliance. Next slide. And then there was this bill, Senate Bill 1396, that's me by the way. Senate Bill 1396, it was a controversial bill. It raised the transit accommodation tax by a smaller degree than what was originally introduced to go to climate infrastructure impacts, i.e. the Kīhei Road on the water, and wildfire mitigation. But as you've seen with Trump in Canada, if you've seen with the cost of living, our tourism numbers are diving. And so this was a really, really hard vote. This is really basically exasperating an economic condition that hits home in this community. However, I believe the governor is serious that there will be projects for South Maui lined up for both categories that are critical that would not get funded without it. And I believe, I speak for the rep, and she'll be up here shortly to say that we are determined to be dogmatic in ensuring that that happens. Because I said in the floor speech that the administration needs to put this money at work in the communities that's being directly impacted, their economic engine, by this tax. Next slide. And this is our state budget recap, real briefly. Next slide. This gives you our overview. We had a budget for this year a little south of $20 billion. The big ones that you see is educate, medicate, and of course the other one we have on there, which isn't listed, is the prisons. But you can see these are our biggest chunks of the pie, which we had to fund this year with a $20 billion fiscal year 25 budget. Next slide. And these are some of the highlights. We added 1.6 for cybersecurity risk mitigation. That's a thing of mine. I mean, I believe that this is one area we have to be even more vigilant than we realize. $865,000 for Made in Hawaii Workforce Development Program. That works with our local companies, especially our local manufacturers. Doing recombinant manufacturing. We got $1 million for the Hawaii Small Business Innovation Research Grants. That's grants to companies that deal with federal grants and then can use that money to build on their business activity. That's important for the growing the businesses at the tech park. We also had $20 million for the summer learning programs. We also passed a bill to fund, by the way, school meals for our keiki. If they run into a snag and can't pay, they can still eat. And the biggest thing that it does, it shields them from the huge increase in the school meal program that was expected to come down. Rep. Amato will talk more about that later. And then we had added 2 temporary positions and $612,000 for Neighbor Island Blind and Visually Impaired Services pilot program. And of course, we did put $50 million in for fire mitigation for projects, particularly in Maui. That does not include Maalaea. Next slide, please. And for District 6, these are some of the capital improvement projects that Representative and I worked on together. $1.6 million to help the culvert clearing along the highways that you see the county doing. $7.6 for 911 emergency upgrades. That includes the 911 emergency upgrade services, which we saw after the fire critically need to be redundant size. We finally got the money for the UH Water Quality Lab. That's important. It means testing done in Maui can be tested here and not sent to a lab on the mainland, which means we get really good results for policy. And then, of course, we did to help our charter schools up there across the road. Charter school per pupil allocation went to $8.5 million in 26, and then 9.6 the next year after. Next slide. And then these are some of the grant and aids: ARC of Maui, Hawaii Food Bank, Polynesian Voyaging Society, big one, Boys and Girls Club of Hawaii, $600,000. There's so much more that I wish we could have done. We did put money aside, though, in the budget for grant and aids for our nonprofits who are going to be slashed with federal cuts. So that's, in essence, another grant and aid that you don't see. Next slide. And the work continues. There is so much more left to be done. And a lot of wild curveballs were thrown at us. I don't think I could have painted this situation in my head in my wildest dreams. And so, but we're here fighting to make sure that we minimize these impacts, that what is important to us is important, but most importantly, we keep working on these projects. And this, again, is my final wrap up to KCA. Their support and involvement on all of these different projects are what I believe is why we'll be positioned better, even if the Fed situation gets worse than we were this year. Next slide. And here are some of the other Kīhei focus issues. Resolutions we passed urging action by the county on many of the issues in South Maui that the KCA echoes. Next slide. And this was the money I talked about to help shield the nonprofits from the funding cuts that could come. Next slide. And mahalo for allowing me to come here and talk story with you tonight. This is my information. Hit the QR code, follow us. We'll be more than happy to email a copy of the presentation. Shoot us questions anytime, and we look forward to working with you and everybody in South Maui. I'd like to go ahead and let Rep. Amato go next, and then we'll just take questions together, if that's okay. Does that work? Okay, mahalo you guys, and thanks for allowing me to wrap up 2025.
see that. It's not on the screen up behind me yet. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you guys here tonight. I'm Terez Amato. I'm your state representative. I have the privilege of working with our Senator McKelvey to amplify your voices at the state capitol to make sure that your needs are addressed there on Oahu. So, you know, it's graduation season, and right now, this is essentially my final exam. So I'm here to tell you what we've kind of worked on. I won't be able to go into everything because time is short. You know, 15 minutes to describe a year of work is a bit challenging, but I'm going to give it a go, and the presentation will be available and we'll be around for questions. So here we are, my legislative update, year of work in 15 minutes. You know, I might actually, give me a second, I'm going to sit. Can you all still see that? Sure. Is that okay? Okay. All right then. All right, so as your state representative, I have to do many things. You know, we introduce bills and resolutions and we try to make laws, or we try to fix bad laws and make them better. I work very hard to bring in funding to make sure South Maui receives its fair share. Otherwise, all the money tends to stay on Oahu. You know, we work hard to advocate for the CIP program, which brings in money for housing, roads, businesses, medical facilities, education, etc. And then we also advocate very hard for the GIA supplemental funding that helps support our nonprofits in our community. And then of course, as we advocate for bills, bills often require appropriations. So we have to fight to ensure that those bills receive the money that they need so that they're effective. Or conversely, we work to make sure that bills that could hurt our community don't receive the funding that they need to be successful. You have to do both sides. So this session, I serve on multiple committees to look at bills, hopefully help add our South Maui voice to ensure that our community is represented. I'm currently the vice chair of the House Committee on Higher Education. In that committee, we oversee UHMC. We actually oversee the entire UH system, all of our public university system campuses. It's a big responsibility, and at the beginning of session, I sat down with my chair and I asked him, what's your vision for this committee? He didn't really have one at the time, so I shared my vision with him, and my vision was very simple. It was, let's make sure we have more four-year programs for the people of Maui here, so our students don't have to travel to Oahu. It's too hard for people to have to leave their families to get an education. We need more four-year programs here, and so that is something I focused on this session. I'm also a member of the House Committee on Education, overseeing DOE. I'm a ranking member of the Health and Homelessness Committee. I'm also a ranking member of the Human Services Committee. And this session, I had the honor of serving as a member of 14 conference committees. Conference is a fun time at the end of session where everyone kind of runs around like chickens without heads. We're all trying to advocate and negotiate between the House and the Senate to make sure that the bills have exactly what we want in them and nothing that we don't want in them before they can go on to become law. So in 2025, there were 3,172 bills introduced between the House and the Senate. That's a lot of bills. Of those, about 10% or 322 bills have passed and have been sent to Governor Green for his evaluation and signature. So let's see. And I was fortunate enough to put my name on 38 of those successful bills. I'm quite surprised. Many of my colleagues didn't have any bills with their name on it past this session. It took a lot of work. I also voted for and supported over 270 more bills on housing, education, environment, etc. We'll go through a few of those bills, but let's not review all 3,172 tonight. That's just too many. So when you have those many bills introduced, and I have to tell you, I did read every single one because I have to know what I'm putting my name on before I do it, because my job is to represent your wishes, not my wishes. So I read every single bill and had to evaluate them. And as we moved through session, I used a hierarchical database and vote with knowledge tools. Because what happens is at the state capitol in the morning, about 2 hours before we all report to our respective floor sessions, we receive what is called the order of the day. And the order of the day can have anything from a few bills to a few hundred bills on it. And so that couple hours is not enough time to be able to carefully evaluate every bill and to know how to vote for your community. So I have an outstanding team of lawyers, law students, a rocket scientist, a whole team of advisors to help me go through these bills each day so that I can make the best decision for my community as possible. So as I said, let's not go through every bill tonight. Let's go through some of the big areas that we do care about: our infrastructure, flooding and fire, housing, education, healthcare, and of course, civil rights. And some of this will sound very familiar, as Senator already covered it, but we'll do it in a little bit different way, I hope. So funding, economy, jobs, infrastructure, and medical all together, all those areas in their funding. So I've been working hard since 2023 with our senator to get the new Maui State Veterans Home, which will essentially be about $99 million to our community. This session, we were successful in securing the $35 million in bonds, which will now allow for the $58 million in federal match, plus an additional $5.8 million federal adjustment. This new state veterans home will not only support our veterans and their spouses, it will also support our Gold Star families. It will provide 50 beds for inpatient care as well as clinics for outpatient services such as physical therapy, etc. And I'm so excited, it will actually create 100 new permanent jobs in our community. And that's not taking jobs from say, the hospital or from Kaiser. These are brand new jobs. Once the building is up and running and functioning, this will also be self-sustaining and will generate $7 to $10 million for our community every year. That money does not come from the state, it does not come from your taxes, it's all federal pull down. It is all free money. So, and because we have infrastructure problems here in South Maui, I think everyone knows that. So I had to fight very hard to ensure that the location that was selected already had the basic infrastructure in place. That way we're not pulling resources from elsewhere. We're not trying to figure out, okay, how are we building luxury homes? No, the infrastructure is there in place and it's ready to go. So I just want to thank our Senator McKelvey for his work on advocating on the Senate side. I had a great conversation with your CIP chair to try and really make sure she understood the importance. Thank you for working on her too.
Thank you.
Could not have done it without you, Senator. So the location will be in Mokulele, or for those that are newer here, that's off of the Veterans State Highway, also known as Pulehunui. So since last session, extra funding for flood mitigation. So we've received an additional $1.25 million in CIP for flood mitigation, as well as sediment removal from Kulani-Hako'i Gulch. And this is the letter from the governor releasing these funds, as Angus told us about. So there's more to be done, but I'm glad it's moving. We also received $3.2 million in CIP for flood and fire mitigation that Angus mentioned about the access deer fencing, because, reducing the erosion really reduces our brownwater events and damage control. So there's another letter from the governor saying, here is your CIP release for your community. So I really want to thank the community because you guys bring these issues to light. You help me do my job and pound the governor and say, come on, you've got to look at this. We've got to fix it. So I'm also happy as a rescue cat owner. Let's see. These are my cats, Pounce the lion and Pewter. Pounce is the explorer of the bunch, as you can tell. But we received $500,000 for the Maui Humane Society to help them with their infrastructure and some of their overcrowding problems. Much more needs to be raised and addressed, but this was a good start. So last session for Kīhei got $68 million, and so far this year, $2 million for the fire prevention, $1.75 for suppression. We've brought in $18 million for Maui Health System. Of that $18 million, $6 million will go to hospital improvements, facility improvements at Maui Memorial, Kula Hospital, and Lanai Community Hospital. And as Angus mentioned, we received $500,000 for the Pi'ilani Highway widening at the southern terminus. I don't know if you've been stuck in traffic there, but boy, at about 4:30, getting out of Wailea, Maui Meadows is a nightmare, so this will help. Also brought in is $3.4 million for the MCCC, our Community Correctional Center, to do some much needed infrastructure repairs there. And then another $157 million for the broader Maui County community for education and transportation. So that's not too bad for the first part of our legislative session, but there's a lot more money that needs to be brought in, a lot more work to be done. So other funding, as Angus mentioned, we work on securing GIA for our nonprofits. There are so many outstanding nonprofits in South Maui that it's hard to pick which ones are you going to support. So I have to be honest, I tried going to bat for almost all of them. Some won, some lost. I really tried. I honestly tried. I'm pretty sure the GIA chair was sick of seeing me every morning. I'd go to him right before floor and say, hey, how's that GIA coming? Will you please look at ProArts? Will you please make sure you don't forget Retreat? We've got really good organizations doing some good work. But some of the ones that won, I'm proud to announce the $200,000 for the Rescue Tube Foundation, because since the first rescue tube was installed 14 years ago, more than 200 rescue tube saves have been reported, with an estimated 30 drownings prevented. That's 30 lives that have been saved. And this grant will double the number of rescue tubes in Hawaii. And the number of rescue tubes in South Maui will double from 85 to 170. Also, Arc of Maui received $200,000 for safe, accessible environment for the disabled in our community. Another $400,000 for the Maui Advanced Manufacturing Alliance, which supports many small businesses. And I'm very happy that Maui Economic Development Board received $150,000 for their internship program, as well as classroom support for our public education students. So some of the good bills I supported or introduced were written to provide more housing, reduce insurance, mitigate flood damage. There's a lot of stuff on this slide. Enhance your family's medical care, a lot of stuff. Animals, public safety was a big one, and some bills passed, some did not. As I mentioned, only about 10% of the bills introduced make it through to the end. So a few of the housing bills that passed that were really good were HB 1409, which adds money to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund, targeting workforce rental housing projects. Now I'm looking further into this bill because I think it's very Oahu-centric, Oahu-heavy, so I'm working on it to evaluate how we bring more of that money to our community to ensure the people of Maui have affordable rentals to call home. We also did HB 1298 to fund a new program to establish the Government Employee Affordable Rental Housing Program. That should help make it a little bit easier to fill some of those critical government positions. Let's see, we also did HB 431 appropriating $50 million for the Kīhei Homeless Initiative over the next 4 years. The good thing about the Kīhei program is it actually saves us healthcare costs in the long run. Providing housing reduces our medical expenses. And for our wildfire prevention component, SB 223 provides money for DLNR to enhance their prevention program for forest reserves. SB 1044, as Angus mentioned, helps to stabilize the property insurance market, establishing the condominium loan program and the condominium loan revolving fund. Honestly, Angus, it's a little insufficient, I'm sure you would agree, but it's a start.
Because of the former finance.
Yes. But we won't talk about our former finance chair. Let's just say that he's no longer our finance chair. Insufficient, but a start. In education, I'm so proud of SB 119 that establishes our 4-year bachelor's degree in nursing here on Maui, because why should our students have to go to Oahu, struggle to live and try to survive, leaving their families behind to get an education? We should be providing that education here on Maui. HB 692 expands preschool open doors. It appropriates $3.6 million for 90 DOE full-time equivalent positions, giving more families the opportunity to send their children to preschool so that families can work. SB 1300, I love this bill. It expands our free school meal program. This is so exciting because hungry kids can't learn. And hungry kids who can't learn are not allowing other students to learn as well. This reduces the stigma of kids in the lunch line who don't have money in their accounts for being able to say, oh, I can't eat today. This says, no, you can eat. You deserve to eat. Kids need a full belly. So I was so excited to support SB 1300. So 429 appropriates $13 million for 100 full-time positions for public preschools. It didn't pass, but it made it into the budget, which is quite honestly just as good. The work will still get done. And then HB 430, which will also help our small businesses. It creates a program with state contracts for apprenticeship programs for private businesses to provide on-the-job training with medical coverage. It's $3.6 million. It's a lot of money, but it's a great investment, and it supports 90 positions. In healthcare, a few of the good bills. So one that I'm really working on right now is HB 250. As a member of the Health Committee, I fought very hard to make sure this bill would get heard because there was some concern that it wasn't. And I don't know if you're familiar with the prior authorization process that our doctors have to go through before they can provide you with your medical care. So what we're doing now is we're beginning the process of obtaining the data necessary to see how much is this prior authorization process impacting the health care that our community is receiving. Once we have this data, we'll be able to reform the entire program, potentially creating a pilot program, maybe in Maui County or another smaller county in the state, that completely reduces or eliminates the prior authorization process. That will save us healthcare costs, and it will help reduce doctors' paperwork time and help us retain more doctors in Hawaii. HB 712 is going to reduce our drug prices. SB 1252 supports Alzheimer's research, and HB 700, in partnership with that, establishes the cognitive assessment program for Medicare beneficiaries. Because we know that if you can detect Alzheimer's at an earlier stage, your prognosis is better in the long run. Okay, so yeah, there are good bills. There are also some pretty terrible bills. So some of the bad bills I voted against. One of them would have allowed for the dumping of 10 million gallons of poop water in the ocean daily. Not kidding. I mean, seriously, $10 million, 10 million gallons of poop just flushed into our ocean every day. So I worked hard to fix this bill and to bring it to my colleagues' attention. So I was going to share the speech I made on the House floor, but for the sake of time, not tonight, but it is on my website. I also voted against bills that allow for the building of seawalls, because seawalls hurt our beaches and our ecosystem. If we care about our beaches, we cannot allow for shoreline hardening, so I have always stood up strongly against shoreline hardening. I voted against bills that were going to give tax breaks to rich, large corporations at your expense. I also voted against the capital gains tax increase because, you know, our economy is not good right now. So I don't think that paying more taxes on your hard-earned investments is a good time. Right now, we need to be focused on keeping more money in your pocket, so I voted no on that. Some of the other bills I fought against were going to strip union employees of their rights. And a personal favorite one, I voted against RoboCop. It violated the U.S. Constitution's 6th Amendment and essentially would have established RoboCop-like cameras like they use in China across the state. So I fought vigorously against that. And another one that I worked very hard to try and kill was securitization. Securitization passed anyway, but it was allowing MECO and HECO to shift their fire lawsuit liability onto you every month with a rate increase on your bill. Sometime I was the only voice on the floor saying, no, I refuse to pass this expense on to our community. It still passed, but I fought hard. Some of the other good bills that did not pass, marijuana legalization, it was killed by leadership on the House side to protect the new consumer protection chair who was uncomfortable with it. Ethics, publicly funded elections, and prohibition of donations from state contractors both died. But politicians need to be held accountable. This is why I refuse all corporate money. A favorite bill that I actually got from our senator, hardening homes. Unfortunately, it died on the Senate side, Angus, but I'm working on it again. It would have provided funds to homeowners to reduce your fire risk, and it would have effectively reduced our insurance costs as well. It died, but it's currently being redrafted with some of the concerns that were raised in the Senate committees, so that hopefully next session we can get it through. So HB 866, Protecting Reproductive Care, mifepristone. So this bill provided access to the pills required for abortion without surgery to protect any person's right to reproductive choice. My bill passed through the Health Committee in the House and the Senate, but it was killed by the Finance Chair.
Ex-Finance Chair.
Thank you, yes, ex-Finance Chair. He is no longer our Finance Chair, thank goodness. But you know, knowing that getting a bill through is not always the only way to get work done at the Capitol, I had a backup plan in place. So my team and I worked directly with Dr. Kenny Fink, the director of the Hawaii Department of Health, and we've initiated multiple contracts that will ensure a 3 to 4 year supply with access throughout the state by mail and at a physical location in each county for in-person medical care. This is a huge win for reproductive rights, especially now that we know mifepristone is under assault at the federal level. So integrity matters, oaths matter, ethics matter. So as the Vice Chair of Higher Ed, I have an immense responsibility overseeing the legislation that comes through that committee that directly impacts UH. So before an important vote, I received a gift. It was an unsolicited gift right before I was going to vote on a bill that impacted the funding for an entire department at UH. I contacted the dean immediately about the ethics code violation, and he apologized, and I said, okay, I still cannot accept this gift. So I refused the gift at our public hearing where we were discussing their legislation. But that's, you know, it's one thing to return the gift, but for me that's not far enough. Not only did I return the gift, I decided to recuse myself from the vote entirely. Because, you know, I don't want anyone to think that I'm for sale. I am clear, I am absolutely not for sale. But by doing this, it initiated an ethics review, and the Hawaii County Administrator counseled the Kona employees with corrective measures. More recently, on an education committee site visit at an Oahu charter school, I had to refuse a really fancy dinner for me and my chief of staff, as well as reimbursements, as they were calling them, from education lobbyists. They want the state to purchase their education program. So they were trying to wine and dine us to get us to support it. I had to say no. I initiated the ethics review. As you know, I refuse all corporate contributions. I tore up the check I received recently from Comcast and others. I continue to stand up against HECO and MECO because oaths matter to some of us elected officials. So in summary, I work for you. It's a job I take very seriously. It is my job to amplify your voice. My rule of thumb is I legislate from the heart using science as my guide to ensure that I am representing the wishes of my community. I will be seeking re-election in 2026, but to continue, I need your help, please. I need your support. I'm Terez Amato. I'm working for the people. I work for you. Mahalo.
We have Angus up on the stage with Terez, and then we can get some questions. I think I'd like to borrow one of those mics, and you can share one.
Me, not stand or sit.
Someone,
I'll sit down.
someone help me walk around, take questions.
First off, Eric got the first question already from my representative, which was on the Hawaiian Garden Means Home Bill not being heard in the Senate. So the reason, but it was heard, but it didn't pass. Because the reason why, but the reason why. Well, there's way bigger problems than that. Unfortunately, the way the program's structured, it was taken off an Oklahoma law program that was passed. There they have an actual agency that does the inspections of the homes to make sure the homeowners pulling the credits are actually doing the work. Problem with us is we don't have an apparatus to do that. So originally it was like, well, economic development and tourism do it. No, they can't, they don't know what they're doing. The counties, well, we're gonna have to rely on them. Well, they like, gee, that's a great idea. Thanks for letting us know. So we had to put the brakes on it. I think it goes to show why 10% of the bills passed. And remember, it's the start of everything, and this is what my philosophy is, legislation is an idea. It's about a discussion to guide your community a certain way for a policy achievement. And so some of these things after 19 years, it's like it's just not, as they say in SNL, it's not ready for prime time, right? And so you got to pull back. Sometimes working groups are made, sometimes resolutions are drafted, but I was bummed too, and we could have probably gotten further, but I think at the end of the day, this summer we can hopefully get with the counties and provide a mechanism of inspection. So, because we don't want to put a credit out and the next thing you know, people are scamming it, right? And so anyway, okay, that's the first question, I guess.
Excellent. So Angus, I just want to add to that. I'm glad that you're on it. The other inside story of what was wrong with it, because I'm going to rely on you to help me fix that bill. We got to get that done. It will provide good relief for our homeowners.
Okay, you guys.
I have one quick comment and then one question. So, I'm really happy to hear about your focus on four-year programs at Maui College, because I'm just absolutely convinced that that's a key to letting more people stay on Maui, get careers, get jobs, get the business life working in such a way that people don't have to leave to get an education and then stay away from Maui. The other one is just a question to both you guys. $500,000 is not much towards widening Wailea. Is that just a study?
It's a study, yeah.
Yeah, study and plan. Yeah, it's a start, study, plan and design. We got to get the actual construction funds, but at least now it's like, and also gets it on the STIP too. State Transportation Improvement Plan moves it up because now it's being funded the first phase. But there's more work to be done, but it's a start. You're right. So anyway.
It is only a start, but it makes it real. So now that there's money allocated, they're like, okay, this is a real project. We actually have to take it seriously and get it done. So yes, we'll be going back to the legislature and saying, okay, we've got this first part, now let's really put the works in and get it done.
Could you clarify on, I know that's a really important topic to everyone here. Can you clarify, does that take the developer off the hook from their condition, thank you, and also what they had proposed, a condition in lieu of that condition was to build more affordable housing and then putting it on the back of the DOT. So could you just clarify that, how that's going to work in the long run?
Okay, so as I understand it, there was some horse trading that occurred for that $500,000. DOT has agreed to some amount of affordable housing on their end. And so it will increase the amount of affordable housing in our community. But it does not completely abdicate the developer from their responsibilities.
Correct, exactly. Doesn't abdicate, and there's two separate, the conditions of the Planning Commission on the project are different than the infrastructure funding. We can get more affordable houses, which was one of the contentious issues. That's huge. It should be 100% affordable. My concern. That's my philosophy right there. And so, but that being said, also we got to get the ball rolling on funding. I'm really worried. I'll say it again. The feds are taking kitty scissors to all highway funding is discretionary. That means the administration can come in at any time and put a tag on it for review or something else. We got talk about certain new formulas, creative formulas being applied to the states on which areas get funding for highway projects and which don't. So much is up in the air. So it also binds the DOT, I guess, like a promise from the ring. It binds them to getting this project done, right? So hopefully that helps. It's a start, but we got to make sure that the community needs to make sure that we are not horse trading nothing, right? And so, but on our end, we got to get this project done for this highway because clearly it's here. So anyway, thank you.
The questions from the audience?
She's been waiting for a while, Rob. She's been waiting.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate all the information. Felt a lot of stress since 2023. Thank you for working on the insurance. That's huge. Biggest part of the insurance problem for us is the flood mitigation. Thank you for getting the funding. My concern is we've gotten funding since 2023 and it's getting worse instead of better. I know you're not magicians and you're doing everything you can, But what can we do as a community to make sure that this really gets addressed? You're getting us the funds, but I feel like we're going backwards instead of forwards. Do you have any recommendations? Because I'd like to know who's in charge. The community's just really feeling stress about this. It was worse this time than it's been ever.
Okay. No, I hear you. This situation's getting worse and worse. And again, the access deers, and these problems have gone on for years, and now the cumulative toll is being done. A lot of what we do is in conjunction with the county. The money for the clearing of the culverts, for the state to assist the county, it's to assist them in the clearing that they've already started. And that's why the resolutions were introduced to kind of say the same thing to the county of Maui. Look, these are the areas in which are your kuleana. And the community needs absolute action from the county level. We, the state, cannot do it. We can't tell them what to do, so we send messages, a policy called resolutions. So we have several. One was for the North-South Connector Road, obviously, but other was to speed up not only the clearing of the trenches, because they're getting so thick, they're getting compact, but also to address the issue of that overpass in the beach road there that isn't built high enough, and it's filling up with mud. And any little incident now wipes it out. So these are all things we desperately, I'm hoping the county can realize some of the funding they have for projects. I think there's way too many projects than just Lahaina. I think there's stuff that CDBG monies could be used for. And the budget, I guess, got its first reading just recently. So now's the time where the KCA and us, all of us, need to be there to ask the county, hey, we need your partnership in these areas. But time isn't on our side. You're right. It's not on our side. But again, this is what's so awesome about the KCA doing this and all of you being here, is to ensure that it stays a visible issue on social media, in the media, and we can point to our colleagues and say, look, this isn't an us thing. This is a everything thing for all of Maui. So, but the budget hearings are coming out, and so definitely be involved with that. But appreciate you being here now, and we're going to continue to fight on these things. You know, we're not giving up, because my good representative, she hits the floods smack dab every time there's any kind of rain. So, you know, she is very, very passionate about this flooding issue. But I think what kind of is sad is that we're dealing with just years beyond us. Systemic. I think a lot of it was just people did not look at the world the way they do now. And then if they had applied the science of now, then we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now. Okay. Go ahead, Thomas.
And I'll just add, many of you have heard me say before, you can't undo 50 years of handing out building permits like it's candy, but we can take important steps now. So one of our resolutions actually called on the Army Corps of Engineers to go back and fix that Kulani Hako'i supposedly temporary bridge that's been there for 10 years. I'm sorry, but 10 years is no longer considered temporary in my book. So we're pushing on the county hard to get this work done, and to work with our federal partners to really readdress, get the Army Corps back out there and fix the bridge.
Which bridge?
The Kulani Hako'i Bridge on South Kīhei Road.
About the one across from ABC?
No, it's further south, just before, is it
Yeah.
Marina Shores?
Yeah. You would practically fish out your car and drive by.
With the giant
Water
sand
so
dune.
high.
I know the one you're talking about, but the one across from ABC is worse.
Yeah, that one's
Waiakoa,
worse
yes,
too. The
Waiakoa
town-
needs to be
That's the county
addressed too.
public works, that they're de-wrestling with right now. Exactly.
Nobody talks about that bridge anymore.
I've seen that Waiakoa Bridge flood. I used to live in Kīhei Villages with my 4 kids, and I used to ride the bus home from Lahaina, and one day it was dark, I was coming home from work, and I fell in a giant hole right there, carrying all my work papers. So I know that Waiakoa Suda store area very well.
But nobody talks about that bridge anymore. They only talk about the other bridge.
So I've had some conversations with the county, trying to push on them. Senator, can we hui up after this and set up a meeting with Jordan Molina?
Nope, definitely. Maybe it was funny, when the thing just started, I was outside talking to people, and really it's become apparent in today's new world, especially federal world, we have to break everything down into projects. That's what the resolutions were about. KCA has been wonderful. They've been the most project-oriented. You know, I sometimes just as confused. I'm a Lahaina boy. honored to represent South Maui, but still, you know, from Lahaina. And a lot of these projects and issues have legacies, and they put together maps and documents. They actually have what I can see is better than the county's layout for potential R1 and future R1 here in that. So that is really what this summer to me is about in this session, is getting with them, the governance committee, on projects like bridge by bridge. That's another bridge we got to get back on. So yes, to your point, that's the thing for this summer with Representative Amato. And when we're done here, we'll do a who we up so we can get with the county on that. But this is what these meetings are awesome. You guys bring us these issues, not only to remind us, hey, you guys bird dog all of these things consistently. So I appreciate you bringing that up to our attention. Me?
No. I'm making sure my chief gets it
Any
done,
other
is
questions?
taking notes.
I appreciate all your efforts and all the money that was put into the deer fencing and cleaning the gulches, but my question is, why are we not holding the privately owned landowners accountable? Why are they not paying fines for neglecting these gulches and excessive deer and all of that? There's 7 landowners on Haleakala, so all this flooding comes from the hill.
Well, it's a combination of state lands, it's lands, and yeah, we could basically say the deer cost of the fencing is $300, I believe, a square foot, because it's not traditional fencing. It's a very specialized fencing because they'll plow, smash through everything right there. We could say, yeah, it's your thing, we can take you to court, we could sue you, you don't have the resources, you'll declare bankruptcy, and Kīhei still has a problem. So there are state lands that are involved. The deer are propagating like crazy on state lands and moving and just like schools of a nui, just whoosh through there. So that's why we're partnering with them. They put in a lot of resources too. I mean, equipment, manpower, hours, things that the money is about getting the infrastructure costs to get it done. So I understand where you're coming from, but to us it was a partnership. They've done a lot in this area, but if we don't bring these kinds of resources to make a huge impact in a short amount of time, it's going to get way worse way fast. So, but I hear what you're saying.
I also have a question about the deer population. $32 million to put fences, I understand the why, because they're the special fencing. However, that does not control the population of deer. We need to have people come in here and get rid of the deer. The deer are an invasive species and they are denuding this mountain. We cannot put fences up because that does not reduce the herd. And I don't know, you get people who work in ecology, work with animals, and tell you this is how you get rid of animals that you no longer can have on this island. It would make a huge difference to South Maui if we could get rid of the deer and start foliating our mountain again and reducing water rundown into our South Kīhei beaches. Thank you.
That's exactly what we're doing. Ecologists are working on this. We have to cull huge populations in the most humane and quickest way possible. You have to isolate these deer to keep them from moving, and properly as they move they feed, and as they feed, guess which comes back? It's not our native fauna, it's the invasives, right? So we've actually had grant funding from my predecessor, Senator Baker, which we continue, that are working on the rehabilitation of these areas. Once the deer are gone, then you can replant. And it was $3.2 million, but that's exactly what we're trying to do. It's an ecological one, it's based upon humaneness, and we have the Maui Venison Company that's doing deer. We did a bill this year to try to expand. The federal government is allowing now, loosening up the rules on deer meat sales to create more use opportunity. But the end game isn't to create an industry, in my mind. The end game is to eliminate an invasive species, completely reforest and fauna the uplands in the Ahupua'a, which it was done, so we have a full restoration of a water system, which is what prevents all of these floods from happening. So that's what we're trying to do with this. But I hear what you're saying. Again, I think we're trying to get to the same place, but this is, I believe, a way we can make a headway on the problems.
Yes, so one of the issues that we found in working on the legislation to cull the herds, essentially, was that, sure, why not have an industry made out of this invasive problem? You know, we have a mandate in Hawaii that 30% of our children's school meals should be locally sourced food. Why not include our local venison? Why cull the herd and just let it rot in the field when we can harvest the meat and actually feed people? So in my bill, we worked on trying to bring more USDA inspectors to Hawaii because we don't have the processing facilities here. So we're working out the kinks on the issue of, I've been told that it requires you to actually have an inspector on site as you're hunting. So that's a hurdle for many of our hunters. But that is something that we're looking for the loopholes to get around that, so our hunters can actually get to where these animals are.
Yeah. I think the thing is it's going to take many different strategies simultaneously. I mean, we may not see, I guess, we're not going to the same place. But it's a problem that by doing this, we think we can make a meaningful impact. I think the common theme is we are very much a day late and a dollar short on a lot of things. We recognize that. We're not going to come in and Pollyanna things to you guys. I mean, so, but we're making headway. But you guys are an important part of all this too, so. Any other questions? Oh, yes, please. Ma'am.
Is it working? Okay.
It's working.
I had a specific question. You talked about the HB 1007 Hawaii Community Development Authority bill. How does that work? For example, trying to come up with a way to get rid of the cesspools in Maui Meadows. We have challenges in getting the funding, setting up a community facility system.
There you go. That's a potential project opportunity to sit down and talk story with them. They can assist in things like this now. Before, it was very politically charged. You had to develop an actual community development authority area, like we have a pool in Hui, right? But the advantages of what they can bring to a community still should be tapped into, right? So this takes away I believe, the politics of the governance issues with the resources and the ability for this agency to be able to cut through, I'll say it, a lot of red tape because they kind of do everything within themselves. And they work with the main word that they really stress, the director, and I really believe him and his team, is community. They'll be here all the bloody time. And on the ground with blueprints and engineers with pencils behind their ears to guide the community into from a vision to an actual project. And so I think it's a great start. So I'm excited about the governor signing this one because I think lets us bring them in potentially to identify, They'll be the first to say, this isn't right for us. This is what we can't, but they can say, hey, you might want to consider it this way. So it's an opportunity for a resource from an agency that has a lot of ability to do things. So.
Excellent. It does look like it's tailor-made for this problem, so we should talk to them.
Yeah, let's definitely do that because there's probably different ways to address your problem.
I've got one back there.
Hello. Aloha. Thank you both for being here. This was so informative. You're doing a great job representing us, and I'm so grateful. But Senator, you talked about an event that's happening tomorrow night that I don't know that any of us know about, that parking lot thing?
Yeah, I guess Park Maui is doing a community meeting. Thank you for reminding me about that. I'll just go ahead and make an impromptu announcement. I thought one of the county guys might be here. But yeah, Park Maui is doing along their ongoing series of community meetings over at the community center tomorrow night, 5 to 7. Very interesting conversation to be had by the community. I guess right now they're narrowing the scope to just beach parking at the beach parks, etc. But there's a lot of ideas and opportunities to be had for the community. There could be some controversies. I know when they were going to do the hearing in Lahaina, I think it was on August 8th, but obviously the meeting was going to be very contentious, right? Because of a lot of the ideas which are being narrowed down, but I think it's an important meeting to be at because there could be opportunities for the community insofar as realizing a parking strategy that could bring benefits to the community too. So, but come on down. So, and thank you for reminding us of that, Adele. Appreciate it. Yeah, one more question or start?
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to just draw attention to one thing that Representative Amato had in your presentation that I'm not sure got the attention that it should have, and that is that she has announced her re-election bid. She will be running for the seat again. My own personal opinion is that the intelligence and the ethical behavior of the representative and everything she's done for the community deserves her re-election. So I just wanted to highlight what I saw, and I think she was too modest to draw a line under. But congratulations, and thank you for taking on the exciting challenge of the Hawaii State Legislature. And congratulations in advance on your re-election.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You're right, I honestly, I'm quite shy, so I don't like to draw too much attention usually. But one of the greatest honors is that I go to work on Oahu, and quite frankly, for me personally, it's therapy, because I am shy. So what I do is I think of the people in my community, and I truly try to channel your voices and to carry you with me, so that it's your voice that's being represented, not myself, because I'm too shy to do the job myself. But if I'm speaking for others, I'm advocating for you, the job is worth hitting my head against concrete multiple times a day. It's an honor and a privilege, so thank you for that.
Do you have time for one more quick question? Terez, thank you for everything you've done, especially on the education committee, with the university, with the preschool, with the meals for the kids. Outstanding work. Along the education lines, what can you tell me about the status of the overpass to Kulani-Hokoi High School? As we know, is mandated by the Land Use Commission, which we all agreed upon, and there was some, Angus's term, horse trading, where the DOT is making the DOE pay for it. Obviously, the funding didn't go through, and Terez and I have seen some designs, which I don't know if the community is well aware of the designs, and they say we're too far gone, that's what you're gonna get. So anyways, I'll let you take it. What can you tell us about that project?
I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's bleak. This federal government with Duffy and this new formulas and the discretionary funding is throwing everything. I got the bypass north that's up in limbo. Everything, other than the raised grants we've secured, everything going forward is scary in limbo right now, insofar as getting any federal support. That being said, I mean, that's where we gotta have some hard conversations about, is the community willing to take a more and more stripped down version to get this thing built right away, or is the community saying, you know what, we're gonna wait for quality, we want what we've been talking about from the very beginning, but we're gonna need federal support to do it. I mean, to build this thing, we went and got money in the budget 2 years ago, and it was very dicey at that point. It's dicey again. This is one of the unfinished businesses we've got to fight for. I'm hoping some way we can lobby this summer aggressively with our federal partners to convince the state that there'll be federal support coming for this and all the other projects like the widening going on. But, you know, I mean, I wish I had better news on it. But I don't at this point. I mean, I guess the fundamental question is to your point about the designs, right? I mean, what the community is going to, if the community is going to, where's the line in the sand for the community insofar as prices and expediency versus design? And that to me is a critical question right now, because funding is looking bleak at this point. So, but I'd like, after we're done here, let's get together, we can follow up together on this. Again, this is one of the many projects, and again, maybe, I'll put a big maybe on this, this is something that we can task help from some other entities for, just to get it done. You know, you're right. I mean, this whole thing happened, when I rolled into office, I was like, how did this all happen? Right? I mean, you're living the dream over here. She was living the dream, but it's about, you know what? I don't believe, I'm a stoic. We don't live in the rearview mirror. You know, we gotta, you know, we can't, we can plan for the future now and work now to get this thing turned in a different direction. So that's my commitment to you. I wish I had better news.
So a little bit of an update. I've reached out to Director Sniffen. As many of you know, I did something what no legislator is supposed to do. I submitted a proposal to Senator Schatz's appropriation guide back in 2023. And they were like, oh, okay, this is something we could probably put forward. They said, but you know, state representatives can't handle this process. It needs to go through your DOT or your county. So I turned it over to Director Sniffen, who then decided he simply wasn't interested. He didn't do a damn thing with our proposal. So that money just kind of went away. But recently, I had a conversation with Robin Shishido, who informed me that they're actually looking at submitting a new traffic study to the LUC, trying to say that they don't need an overpass anymore, which is outrageous. So I'm fighting that with them right now. They're trying to just get rid of the requirement, as per usual. But you know, DOE screwed up back when they paid for the roundabout in the first place, because that money was meant for the GSPC. So we're still fighting. I'm not giving up. I haven't camped out on DOE's doorstep yet, but we're almost there.
Well, I gotta be honest, that's really disheartening news, Representative here, that they're basically trying to pull the plug on this project, but they have a land use commission that could be sued upon. It's a law, exactly. And to the point of the roundabout, when I came rolling in to this great honor that you've given me to serve as your state senator at this time, you know, I was like, well, how did this, because that money was originally, I guess, to create that safer route for the kids, right? And then it turned into a roundabout because of, I guess, again, decisions made by certain individuals along the way, right? So now we definitely got to do some camping this summer.
I'm all for camping. You know, we have the Safe Routes to School program, which is for crosswalks primarily. But I'm thinking next session we need to start pushing on them and saying, hey, we need a safe crossing to school as well.
That's a great idea.
They have money. Let's try and go after it.
Thank you for being here and bringing this up. Let's go after that money. Let's go after that money. Because safe routes to school, we've given it so much legislative abuse. This is a safe route to school issue. So this is democracy in action. Thank you guys. Okay, so let's get on this then right away.
Thank you, Representatives,
Thank
for
you. Yes, sir.
coming and speaking to us.
While you're at it, see if you can get some money for the north-south collector road. We've been talking about this for a quarter century now.
No, I know we did a.
Now's the time. I read in the Maui News that there's no money in this county budget for the north-south collector road. They're counting on federal funds. Same problem you've been mentioning with the other things.
Yeah, I know, but it's a county project. I mean, you're absolutely correct. If we're talking planning and design for the final link. Right now, if everything that's on the books were built, you'd have it stop all of a sudden before it connects up, right? So that's what we're trying to urge, is like, get ahead of this. Planning and design for the future could be achievable even with this brutal federal funding, but to get the ball rolling. So we'll be supporting that. The county budget hearings, the fact that it's not in there, yeah, people, the KCA, when it comes to South Maui, everybody should be out there saying this is ridiculous, yet again. Over and over, and the area gets projected for more growth, more projects. The visitor industry of Maui is located here now, here. And so that's why the impacts are really being felt by the community right now, because 9 out of 10 visitors land at Kahului, they're coming here. So, I hear you. So we'll keep on our end fighting, and I know Rep. Amato, as you've seen, is up for a good scrap. So.
I would just thank our representatives
I have
for,
one question.
I think we need to wrap up. This is getting way over time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking to us and answering our questions.
One more
Yeah,
question over here.
we'll hang out in
Get
front.
around.
I have one more question for you, Ann. This question is based on hopefully passing a bill. You guys are lawmakers. We learned a lot, hopefully, from the Lahaina fire. And Kīhei is surrounded by empty lots of vacant land. It's overgrown. It has dead trees and everything in it, and people living in some of these fields. As you know, in South Maui, the winds come up in the afternoon, and it just takes a little spark in these fields surrounded by neighborhoods. I talked to the fire department, and they said, well, that's not our department. So I went to the police department and said, well, you just have to contact the owner. My point is, why doesn't the county contact vacant land owners and have them fined to every day until they clean their properties to prevent fires? Instead of letting another fire happen and say, you know, we should have done this, we should have contacted these owners. So the point of this question is, cannot go through you folks funneling it into a bill that it makes mandatory of vacant land off-island potentially owners to take care of their properties.
That's a compelling idea, I like it. But as you mentioned, the county really has purview over many of these things. That said, we're really good at passing resolutions that say, hey, county, you've got to do this. So what do you think, Senator?
Well, we actually do, our bills introduce all the time to exactly that. I mean, to mandate the counties, you do this by law, you do that by law. There was one introduced earlier this year, we worked on it, would have created hard design rules, if you will, for setbacks in residential areas to address, you know, very same issues about it. But of course, because it's a county thing, you're mandating the county to do it, you're not giving them any money, the bills die. So we turn to resolutions to send this message to the county, hey, the community is demanding an answer on this. So this is one area, yes, we would love to pursue. I know my colleague, Senator Elefante, is going to bring back a bill again. You know, you start off with a 100% full octane version before you end up with a resolution, even though the chances of the bill passing are probably much more thinner because of that. It sends a strong message to the state of Hawaii is willing to override the county on a law of general applicability by making this statewide over the county because you're not moving forward on this issue. So I think that's something we could definitely do a bill on with our colleagues. Like I said, they've introduced various versions, I think strong versions, and all need to be brought back. There's a lot of measures like this that really need to be brought back. I mean, Kīhei came so close. It was like for the luck of the wind dropping when it did. I mean, this thing is, that's the thing I think we stressed our colleagues all the time is that. And that's why the TAT bill, projects for South Maui, for the very same things you talked about on the state lands, especially on the.
So, I mean, yes, we need to complete the north-south collector, but while we're pushing for that to get done at the county level, we're also starting the work for the Mauka bypass. Because that is that will serve as a fire break and an evacuation route for South Maui. Because yeah, if fire comes, you're a sitting duck here in South Maui. So I'm fighting for the new Mauka bypass, and we'll keep working on that. And I think I would really like to partner with you on the vacant property maintenance legislation.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, I think the message is, guys, and by the way, I'm not up. I'm here on my role as a state official, so I'm not campaigning and nothing to do with my efforts on that front.
And he's a great senator. We need to keep him in office.
But I'm here as a senator only, so with a report card, because you guys are our bosses. I think we were so nervous as heck before tonight because I know she was, because we're reporting back to you guys. Because not only are you our bosses, we love our bosses. They're tough, and they demand, and and that's why we fight every day, because we know you expect us to do that for you. And I think it's okay. I'd like to end it on that. We'll be around, I think, for a few minutes afterwards if you want to ask individual questions. But with that, if it's okay with KCA.
Thank you very much. What a team we got, huh? Thank you very much. Okay, so for that, we're kind of running over time, so I think we're going to end the meeting here. Thank you. If anyone here is not a member of KCA, but you've heard things here that interest you, that think you would like us to be more involved in, that you can contribute to, it's very, very easy and very inexpensive to become a member. You can do it at the table on your way out. Thank you, and that's it for this evening.